Hello, parents. I'm Mr. Howard Yu. Today, let us examine the analysis of this 2025 prelim paper from this particular school. It is important that we learn from mistake, and also parents and students do not be too disappointed with your results in prelim, because learning from mistakes can help you improve better in the next 3 weeks as you take the PSLE actual examinations. So there's a famous saying, turning crisis into opportunities, 将危机转为商机. So it's important that we can learn from everyone's mistake and move on to greater heights. Let us begin with the first question. This is question 29. I've indicated with the alphabet L to indicate this is a life science questions. So without spending too much time reading through the questions, you can do the screenshot. What I want to do is to focus on why student makes careless mistake in this examination. So first of all, you can see that this word, it says that Sabrina removed all the leaves from the plant. And from the student's answer, we can see that the student is very careless in answering the first question of this OEQ. Why was that so? This is my hypothesis, because it seems that the student was stunned by the loads of information in this question. As you can see, there's a whole chunk of information here, plus 2 diagrams. Number 2, the student was not alert to the fact that all the leaves of the plant were removed. Because you can see in the student's answer, the student put that there are still leaves here. So this is the first question that actually demonstrated the student was careless in answering the questions, because the student did not see or maybe have omitted the word all here. And the way he answered, because he said there are still leaves, so this is totally out of the questions. But thankfully, he mentioned something that is correct about a food carrying tube, so he was awarded 50% of the marks. Let's move on to next question. Also, it's a life science question, and the student answered quite well here, and a full 2 marks were being awarded. Next question. This is also a life science question, and the student answered perfectly well. Very good. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this question is a tricky open-ended question. The part where oxygen is present in the blood, I believe that less than 20% of the students would mention this. Therefore, this student, he has omitted, and only 50% of the marks was awarded. So this is very important to mention about the oxygen present in the blood. And also here, we can see that the student was careless, because you can see the question required the student to answer why Peter's heart rate increased when he was jogging. But the student mentioned resting. So that's why it's very careless. And it's important to be careful in checking your answers. Okay, next, this is the first physical science question in the open-ended questions. So let's review here. As you can see, when they arrange in this format, the first question is a life science, physical science. So once it comes to physical science questions, students need to interpret information. And you notice this is the first P6 questions in the PSLE science examinations. So why I mentioned P6? Because you see the other questions are actually not P6 level. Okay, why is that so? This question is actually a P5 content questions that student must be able to master well. And also the reproduction of plants and dispersal of plants are taught in P5. So question 29 and 30 are P5 content. And also 31. 31 is about the digestive system and the circulatory system. Is also a P5 content question. And now the 32 is the first physical science question, and this one is a P6 question talking about the process of photosynthesis. Okay, I mentioned here that this fact was clearly taught on page 31 of One Academy's Science inverted comma Bible, because I have actually condensed all the important information students need to memorize. And we can see that the student has forgotten to mention all the ingredients needed for photosynthesis. As you can check, the ingredients of water was missing here, so he was not awarded the marks. And also here, the next question, explain the purpose of the setup. That is a control setup, and it's also clearly stated on page 39 of the One Academy's Science Bible, or the inverted comma Bible, because these are things that they should memorize and be able to reproduce in the examinations. Let me do a screenshot of what I mean by these facts here. Okay, this is the One Academy Science Bible. As I mentioned, this is the cover page that I have specifically designed an important concept for students to memorize. Let's turn to page 31. As I mentioned, this important scientific concept on photosynthesis. So you can see from here, it's clearly stated that during photosynthesis, carbon dioxide, water, and light, as well as chlorophyll, are needed. So in this process, glucose or food plus oxygen are produced. So as we see this question, as I mentioned earlier, the student has forgotten this fact clearly stated on page 31 as well as page 39. Page 39 is I taught the student to answer questions regarding control setup. So if you turn to page 39, you can see this is also clearly taught here. Explain the purpose of the control setup. This part over here. Okay, explain the purpose of the control setup is mentioned over here. To show that any difference in the variable measured is only due to the change made. So if you return back to the question here, so the student was very careless because he did not memorize this question well, which I have reminded the student that they should memorize these facts very well. So let's move on to the next question. In question 33 is also a P6 question, life science. So this question, let me remove the earlier annotation which I have made over here. And let's see how this student answered. So first question answered well. Okay, second question, the student failed to explain his statement. Okay, because here the student mentioned that there may be a disease that only affect the birds. Okay, what the student did was the student only stated, but the student did not explain. So if the student could provide a logical explanation of how this disease affect only birds, he may be awarded the full marks. So as you can see, the model answer provided by the school is very logical. Okay, due to the time constraint, you can screenshot and analyze the answer. And let me move on to the next part. This is a life science question the student answered quite well. I get the full marks of 2 marks. And do take note, this is a P4 physical science questions. And this part he answered well, 1 mark. And I underline this part, gain heat. Okay, I like parents to take note. P4 questions can be extrapolated to P6. So nowadays, PSLE, they integrate cross-topic and cross-level testing. So it's more holistic. So you can see this question 34A, part A is on heat, which actually a P4 student will be able to answer. P6 question is part B, talking about behavioral adaptations. So I made a remark here. Once again, this remark I have put here, the student was careless because gain less heat. He wrote water loss. So this is a careless mistake made by the student. And this is the answers provided by the school. So do take note, we need to avoid making careless mistake so that we can get better grades or better marks. Next question is a physical science questions. Okay, if you notice, all these are extra annotation made by me. Okay, I want to use this question to highlight to you the importance of annotation, and this will actually reduce the stress when looking at such questions. Okay, firstly, this shows the activity level of organism W. And here on the horizontal axis is temperature. So the original graph does not have any markings. So what I did was insert the marking over here. Okay, this is the trick to help students to make their answers more presentable, and also help them to answer and also to interpret the graph accurately. Okay, this is the activity level. So you can see start from 0, the temperature increase from 10, 20, 30 up to 50. Then you can put a generic activity level, shift it to the here. So then you can see now it's clearer. You can use the numbers to guide you to answer. Because without a number, that's why the student made a careless mistake here by stating the opposite relationship. Can you see? The student put as the temperature of the organism W surrounding decrease. Okay, decrease is actually moved towards the left, not to the right. The activity level of the organism decrease, which is wrong. So if I put this annotation here, the answer is very straightforward. As the temperature of the organism W surrounding increase, the activity level of organism decrease. So you can actually see what I mean. So as this temperature increase, right? What happened to the activity level? It followed this line, right? So this activity level decreases from 400 to 100. And next, part D, I put here, careless, not observant. Okay, because they say how organism W light color scales help it to obtain food. Help it to obtain food does not mean that escape from predator, because the student answered escaping from predator. So instead of escaping from predator, by camouflaging well, it can attack another prey more easily. So you can see here 2 marks of careless marks being lost here. So be careful. So you have learned the skill of annotating unmarked graphs so that you can interpret the information more accurately and also be observant of what they ask for. Next, this is a physical science question indicated by the alphabet P over here. And also, I made a remark here because they say based on the information, which month or months. Okay, you notice no marks is awarded for partial answer. So in PSLE marking, there's some standardization. Some school may give half mark for partial answer, but in this school, they have decided in the standardization exercise, even 1 month is correct, they'll give 0 because this is according of the standardization. Okay, do not ask why, because for example, MOE, PSLE science, right? If they decide that each month correctly given will be awarded half the mark, then let it be so. But if the chief examiner decide that the student either get 0 or 1, so even a partial answer will be given 0. Okay, this is a careless mistake because if you see here, under this PSI indication, okay, which month become very unhealthy? Okay, can you see very unhealthy tallies with this column, right? So it falls in the range of PSI 201 to 300. So can you see these two values are actually within this range, but the student only wrote 1 month. So this is a careless mistake. Next question is a life science question involving global warming. Okay, personally, I think the word less is optional in this answer. So that's why I advise the student to check with the school science HOD. Because as I read this question, the word less is actually optional. So instead of getting 1.5 marks, I would have awarded the student 2 marks. Okay, this one, because according to PSLE science marking protocol, you can see this CNN interview with the PSLE science chief marker. He said that we mark the ideas of the student. Okay, we mark the ideas because from here we can see that the student understood the ideas clearly, and therefore, in my personal opinion, a 2 marks should be awarded to the student. Okay, before I continue the next part, I would like to make a pause here so that the video can be more condensed and you do not need to spend too much time viewing this. So now I have explained up to question 35. Just do a quick recap over here to learn from the student mistake, turning crisis into opportunities. So we need to learn from the mistakes. So number one here, we can see the first question was answered rather carelessly, so be careful. Question 2, very good, full marks. And also this, full marks. Question 3, this is a bit tricky. I believe that only 20% of the student will get this part correct. And also there's a careless in interpreting. Jogging, the student wrote resting. So be more careful. And also this part, failure to memorize scientific fact also will cause you to lose mark. And also need to provide logical explanation. This is answered quite well, full marks for this. And this heat topic being extrapolated to the P6 structural or behavioral adaptations. So be careful this part because you can see there's a transfer of heat gain and heat loss in this question. And also wrote the opposite. So it's important to annotate unmarked graphs to help you to interpret the graphs better and provide the answer. So I have stopped at question 35, and I wish you all the best in doing a quick review of this. I can see quite a high standard paper from this school. And I would like to encourage those students who did not do so well, learn from your mistakes and also move on towards the next level of preparation for your PSLE or even P5 science examination. Thank you.